up on this Tuesday edition of Newsline at noon. Rival lawmakers are confident they will reach an agreement on a spy agency reform bill and pass the 2014 budget before the year ends. Korea's rail union workers return to work after a 22-day strike as a parliamentary committee begins deliberating ways to improve rail service efficiency without privatizing it. Plus, a second suicide bomb attack in 24 hours in the southern Russian city of Volgograd kills 14 people, raising security concerns ahead of the Sochi Winter Olympics in February. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. So here we are on the final day of 2013, and Korea's parliament has still yet to pass a number of key bills, including next year's budget bill.
The budget needs to be passed today, or lawmakers will be forced to draw up an unprecedented provisional budget. Our Kim Young-gil has more.
Parliament restarted talks Tuesday to pass not only the national budget for next year, but a series of other key bills. The national budget will be put to a vote at Tuesday's Parliamentary Budget Committee meeting before it goes to the National Assembly's plenary session. Earlier Tuesday, the ruling Saenuri Party and main opposition Democratic Party agreed to add a clause in the bill on reforming the nation's spy agency, which has been a hurdle in passing the budget. The bill bans National Intelligence Service agents from having full access to government offices, including media outlets, and it also stipulates penalties for any illegal activities performed by agents who are part of the psychological warfare unit. President Park Geun-hye has urged Parliament to pass the $340 billion national budget by year's end, because if it fails to do so, the government will have to put together a provisional budget which would severely curtail spending intended to boost Korea's economy. If this were to happen, the government could only execute mandatory expenditure, spend money on maintaining some public organizations, and continue previously approved business projects. Such spending accounts for around 40% of the proposed budget. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
The nationwide rail strike that gripped Korea for over 3 weeks is now officially over, with thousands of striking workers returning to their posts within the last hour or so. Our Kim Yeon-bin reports.
Watchers are hailing President Park Geun-hye and her administration's adherence to the law for resolving the rail strike in the manner in which they did. After 22 long days for the nation's commuters and companies alike, striking core rail union workers returned to work at 11 a.m. Korea time. Union leaders promised to call off the strike Monday after the country's two main political parties agreed to form a parliamentary subcommittee under the Transport Ministry. The first subcommittee meeting Tuesday will focus mainly on ways to enhance the management of Korail without privatizing part of its KTX bullet train service. Union leaders have pledged to be actively involved every step of the way.
We will be actively involved in the new subcommittee to guide it in the right direction, and we will share the process with the public to enhance our public railway system.
The formation of the new subcommittee was one of 5 changes the union asked for during talks with management last week. The union said the government's plan to form a subsidiary to run a new KTX line was actually the first step toward privatizing rail services in the future, something the government still denies. The parliamentary committee will be made up of an equal number of members from the two main rival parties, but it will be headed by a ruling Saenuri Party lawmaker. The rail strike is now over, but officials say it will take about 1 week before rail services return to normal. Kim Yeon-bin, Arirang News.
No matter which way you slice it, 2013 was not a year in which much got done in Korea's parliament. The ruling and main opposition parties were at each other's throats over allegations of election meddling, a missing summit transcript, and much, much more. Kim Min-ji has this report.
The Park Geun-hye administration got off to a rocky start as the Government Organization Act had not yet passed the National Assembly. With the ruling and opposition parties failing to reach an agreement over the government reorganization plan, Park became the first president in Korea's history to take office before receiving approval from parliament. President Park was sworn in office without finishing the appointments for her prime minister and cabinet members.
The National Assembly has become a sticking point for the new administration.
I think the lack of progress on negotiations on the reorganization plan is due to the top-down decision-making style of the ruling party and the president.
New allegations about state agencies meddling in the presidential election also took a toll on the relationship between the two sides. With investigations failing to provide clear-cut answers, the rival parties stepped up their attacks on each other. The confrontation escalated after the transcript from the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit was reported missing. The transcript held the key to determining whether former South Korean President Roh Moo-hyun made remarks to nullify the West Sea border with North Korea. The Saenuri Party held opposition lawmaker Moon Jae-in, chief of staff at the time, responsible, while opposition parties said the Saenuri Party illegally got hold of the transcript to influence the presidential election.
Lawmaker Moon Jae-in himself will know very well, so I cannot say to him to hold whatever responsibility. He should decide for himself.
The prosecutors should conduct a fair and detailed investigation into how the transcript was leaked.
Despite the wrangling, lawmakers from both sides were able to successfully mediate the prolonged nationwide railway strike that came to an end on Monday. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
There are signs North Korea could once again threaten South Korea just after an annual military training exercise between South Korea and the US that is set to begin next March. The Seoul-based Institute for National Security Strategy says there is a high possibility Pyongyang could attempt a fourth nuclear test or launch another ballistic missile following the annual Key Resolve and Foal Eagle drills. The Institute adds the North could set off provocations in order to strengthen its internal unity, which could have been affected by the execution of Jang Song-taek, the once powerful uncle of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. In response, the South Korean military says it was ready to retaliate if provoked. Pyongyang recently dispatched 60 attack helicopters and 200 pieces of heavy artillery to islands near the western maritime border to strengthen its defense capabilities. North Korea has demanded South Korean companies at the Inter-Korean Kaesong industrial complex pay taxes, which it promised to exempt them from when resuming operations at the business park in September. According to the South's Unification Ministry on Monday, North Korea notified the businesses last week to pay taxes imposed from January to April 8th. A period before Pyongyang unilaterally suspended factory operations earlier this year. Pyongyang then said it would add extra charges if the companies fail to pay up by next Friday. The South Korean government has refused to accept the demand, saying it goes against their earlier agreement. The Chinese government says its leaders will not meet with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe following his controversial visit to the Yasukuni War Shrine. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Qin Gang said Monday that Abe had miscalculated China-Japan relations since taking office and had made mistake after mistake. Calling Class A war criminals at Yasukuni fascists and the Nazis of Asia, Qin said Abe honouring them during his visit was glamorizing Japan's militarism and wartime imperialism. The spokesperson said the Chinese people do not welcome such a Japanese leader, adding that Abe needs to admit his mistakes to the Chinese government and its people.
For your fill of Korean and international news, join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
The world saw burgeoning recoveries in most advanced economies this year, but these were counterbalanced by recessions in a number of emerging markets. Our Ojin-ji reports on what to expect in the global economy in 2014.
The world is about to bid farewell to 2013, a year in which confidence in the euro was restored and economic growth in China accelerated again, while most emerging markets suffered one of their worst economic crises in decades. So what about next year? Economists project tepid but steady growth in 2014, with recent economic indicators looking positive. The U.S. Federal Reserve provided a concrete example of that optimism earlier in December when it decided to start scaling back its monetary stimulus based on the strength of recent signals from the economy. The International Monetary Fund also made an upward adjustment to its projections for next year's growth rate to around 3.6% from roughly 2.9% this year. However, analysts say there are still some obstacles to overcome, with corporations still unwilling to invest and the high unemployment rate in the U.S. And as for the world's second largest economy, China, it forecasts its economy and financial market to be on a steady path next year as it tries to shift from its current traditional export-led model to a more domestic consumption-driven one. While no official economic target has been announced for next year, many economists predict that Beijing will set a similar 7.5% or higher goal. And the Eurozone, while looking a lot more stable than it did at this time last year, remains the biggest question mark for the global economic outlook. In 2013, the Eurozone finally came out of a long recession and confidence in the single currency was restored. The trend toward stability is likely to continue in 2014, however, the growth outlook remains on the downside. Overall, analysts point out that despite some signs of a brighter future ahead, there is a need to address the big structural problems and imbalances that continue to weigh on the global economy. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
Korea's consumer price index has logged its lowest growth in 14 years. Statistics Korea says prices grew by an average of 1.3% this year, making it the lowest growth in 14 years when it was at 0.8% right after the Asian financial crisis in the late 1990s. Consumer prices in December rose 1.1% from the same month a year ago, dropping by 0.1 percentage point from the previous month. It's the second straight month the index has been in the 1% range. Prices rose by nearly 2% from the previous year, excluding agriculture and petroleum products. Prices of fresh produce dropped by just over 11%. Statistics Korea says prices will continue to be stable and there's currently no risk of deflation. Let's now take a closer look at how the global economic conditions affected Korea in 2013. When we look back over the past 12 months, we can see the strong reemergence of two consumption behaviors. Our Connie Kim reports.
Korean society has entered a slow growth stage, and in 2013, that was accentuated in two already existing consumption patterns that came to the fore.
As a response to the slow economic growth, consumers are purchasing low-cost everyday products, while at the same time spending more on goods that reflect their tastes and interests.
The Korea Trend Research Institute included budget phones and less expensive convenience store brand products on its list of 2013 hit items. Budget phones targeted the niche market of customers who only wanted the basic functions of a cell phone, while the convenience store brands targeted consumers looking for bargains.
I usually purchase convenience store brand snacks and coffee. I buy these products because they offer a wide variety, lower prices, and are high quality.
However, on the other hand, individuals showed a different purchasing trend when it came to small luxuries, including desserts, liquor, and premium perfumes.
The luxury trend has become widespread, and consumer purchases of small luxuries have become even more popular because of the relatively low cost.
Consumers also prefer to buy multifunction electronic appliances such as refrigerators that preserve kimchi, make carbonated water and purify water, and air washers that are combination humidifiers and air purifiers. These new categories of appliances were popular as they reduce energy consumption and free up extra space. Analysts say the consumption trend for 2014 will resemble a barbell where consumers select products that offer traditional conveniences and at the same time, new experiences. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Korea's tourism account is on track to log its biggest shortfall in 3 years. The Bank of Korea and the Korea Culture and Tourism Institute said Tuesday the country's tourism deficit was $3.26 billion in the first 11 months of the year, an increase of 26.3% from the previous year. Last month, the tourism deficit was $256 million, marking the 18th straight month a shortfall has been recorded. With more Koreans expected to travel overseas for the holiday season, the deficit is expected to grow even more this month and could be the largest since the $3.97 billion recorded in 2010.
As the year comes to an end, more people decide to share what they have with those in need. The donating trend in Korea is steadily changing, with individuals choosing to be more charitable with their extra pennies. Shin Se-min reports.
An anonymous individual dropped a check worth nearly $95,000 into one of the Salvation Army's red kettles in Seoul this December. The organization says it's the third straight year that the generous benefactor has made a donation, although he or she remains unknown. Although most of those donating money in Korea are giving far less than thousands of dollars at a time, the total amount being donated in the country has been on a steady rise in recent years. In 2011, a combined $10.5 billion was donated by businesses and individuals, with over 63% of that coming from the public, double the amount seen 4 years earlier.
This thermometer in Gwanghwamun Plaza is part of the Community Chest of Korea's year-end fundraising drive that runs through Lunar New Year. And as you can see, citizens have contributed around $200 million so far, roughly $90 million short of the target amount.
As for why Koreans are giving in record amounts, analysts say economic growth isn't the primary reason.
When you give individually rather than in a group or corporate setting, it becomes a personal matter because the giver has the power and choice over the donation, and the receiver knows exactly where the donation comes from. And there is increased happiness because of the more personal for the both parties.
A sentiment echoed by the warm-hearted individuals who are giving this holiday season.
Although it's a small amount, the fact that I contributed in helping those less fortunate gives me satisfaction.
And it doesn't only have to be cash or coins dropped in a bucket. Individual donors in Korea are also encouraged to donate via the phone, credit card, and by wire transfer. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The Korean film industry reached some very impressive milestones this year, with record ticket sales at home and Korean directors making a serious splash in Hollywood. Son Jung-in gives us a roundup of the year in movies.
2013 has been a bountiful year for the Korean movie industry, with a record 200 million tickets sold. And behind this success were local thrillers such as Cold Eyes, Hide and Seek, and Terror Life, which dominated the box office.
Many moviegoers like to watch thrillers, but this year in particular, the movies that attracted them more had unique details and diverse actors.
Movies about North Korean defectors such as The Berlin Files, Secretly Greatly, Commitment, and The Suspect were also popular, with the defector storyline adding an extra element of suspense.
I like the fact that the actors are all so handsome, and unlike some of the dark and depressing storylines I've seen in the past, these movies have some fun factors that made them more interesting.
This was also the year of the re-release at the Korean box office, with local theaters offering screenings of classics Cinema Paradiso and Love Letter, which drew more than 20,000 moviegoers each, and Leon, which attracted 40,000.
We couldn't really watch these classic movies on the big screen before, so it is nice to see them again in the theater.
2013 was also the year that major Korean directors made their Hollywood debuts, with Park Chan-wook's Stalker and Kim Ji-woon's The Last Stand hitting it big overseas. Rookie directors also made a splash at the cinema this year, with The Attorney, Hide and Seek, The Terror Life, and Cold Eyes, each surpassing 5 million viewers.
Hojung's hide and seek, Kim Byung-woo's The Terror Alive, and Yang Woo-seok's The Attorney were all made by new directors working in different genres. And they are the sole evidence that Korean movies are becoming more diverse.
According to local cinema chain CGV, the average Korean has watched 4 movies at theaters this year, making them some of the most avid moviegoers in the world, with experts crediting the growing diversity of the films on offer. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
A second terrorist attack in 24 hours in the southern Russian city of Volgograd is triggering some serious safety fears in the run-up to the Sochi Winter Olympics. At least 14 people were killed and 28 wounded Monday when a bomb struck a trolley bus. The roof of the bus was blown off, scattering debris and bodies across the street. This attack came one day after 17 people died in a suicide bomb attack at the main train station in the same city. Interfax news agency reported Monday that Russian authorities believe Pavel Pichenkin, a member of a Dagestan-based militant gang, was the bomber in the train station attack. Responding to growing fears about safety, the International Olympic Committee president says he's confident Russia will deliver a safe and secure games in Sochi. The United States has named 6 states that will develop test sites for drone aircraft. The Federal Aviation Administration says Alaska, Nevada, New York, North Dakota, Texas and Virginia will host research sites. Drones have mostly been used by the US military, but local governments, businesses and farmers are also keen to make use of the technology. Transportation Secretary Anthony Fox says the test sites will give the government valuable information about how to best ensure the safe introduction of drones into US skies. The FAA expects over 7,000 commercial drones to be aloft within 5 years of getting widespread access to American airspace. Okay, so we're about to enter the year of the horse, aren't we? The blue horse, in fact.
Right.
And wasn't this year the black dragon?
I believe it was the snake.
The snake,
the
yes.
dragon was the year before.
Well, the year of the horse does sound much nicer, so let's hope that 2014 is really good. But today is the last day of 2013, and we're going to get a check on the New Year's weather with our very lovely weathercaster, Jian, standing by. Hello there, Jian.
Happy New Year's Eve, Mark and News, and well, yes, it's the last day of 2013.
Well, Jian, you've been telling us that the weather will be mild throughout the week, and I guess that will draw bigger crowds than usual for New Year celebrations.
I assume so too, Yusan. Well, a lot of people will be traveling to places around the country to see the sunrise and sunset, but you don't have to travel too far to see either one. The sky will be generally clear tonight and tomorrow, making for great conditions to sunrise and sunset no matter where you are. Well, the last sunset of 2013 in Seoul will be at about 5:23 this evening, and the first sunrise of the new year will be at about 7:46 in the morning. So we will have mild temperatures on New Year's Eve, but please be aware that the level of dust particles will be somewhat higher than normal nationwide today, and some parts of the central region might receive flurries tonight. And tomorrow it will be a tad chillier than today. today, so if you're planning to spend some time outdoors, be sure to dress in layers to stay warm. But thankfully, we're not expecting a cold snap this week, so we will have a mild start to 2014. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. The afternoon high in Seoul will peak at 6, while Daegu and Gwangju will get up to 10 and 9, and Busan will see a high of 11. Now, for other regions, it looks like Jeju will have afternoon highs in 13, and Daejeon and Dokdo will reach 8, and the top temperature on Mount Kumgang will be -2. Now, that's all for me this year. I hope you have a wonderful New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and back to Mark and Yusan in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Jiyeon. Happy New Year to you too. And that does it for this New Year's Eve edition of Newsline at Noon. And Yusan and I, on behalf of Arirang, would like to wish everyone a very happy New Year.
And stay tuned to Arirang in the new year for your access to stories making headlines here in Korea and around the world. Mark and I will be back Thursday here on Newsline at Noon.